morning, good evening, wherever you're coming from. I'm so grateful to be with you today. Some of you are still unmuted. So before we get started, if you would take the opportunity in the right-hand corner of your screen or on the lower left-hand corner, you can mute yourself. Just helps with distractibility. Thank you for doing that. So Happy New Year, everyone. My name is Lisa Rowe. I have the privilege, I get to call myself something different today, to be the clinical strategist for support after abortion. If you haven't heard, my beloved colleague, Kylie Heap, has taken the reins of support after abortion. She is doing a wonderful job. And I am here with you in a different role, but still with the same heart. And I'm really thrilled to be here. We ask you, as we rolled out the video, to put your name in the chat, put where you're from. It's pretty amazing to see where all of our folks on the call are from today. And as you're doing that, I just kind of want to do a recap of what we did in December. If you were here, great. If not, you can always go back and listen to the recordings. But we talked about the window of tolerance and how when we're under stress and pressure, when the pain of the past overtakes us, our tolerance to be able to see new ideas, to be able to experience life in a peaceful way becomes more and more constricted. And we talked about how to grow that tolerance and the capacity within ourselves, but also within our clients. So if you didn't get to join us, I strongly encourage you to go back for yourself, but also for those that your life touches, because it really could be a useful tool to you. And with that in mind, we're going to offer you a new and different tool that I also feel would be incredibly valuable to you today. And it kind of came out of a fun and interesting experience that I had with my team. I think in October of last year or November, I wanted to offer them this idea to kind of just really get in touch with themselves, their time, how they're spending it, what's breathing life into them, what isn't. And so we used the balance wheel. And cool story, I've been doing a balance wheel in many of my coaching classes and programs that I've been in for the last maybe 4 years. And so every month I'd sit with a group of CEOs and we'd be challenged to kind of analyze our life on this wheel. And little did I know that we'd be paying it forward here. But the team really valued it. And they said, hey, we really think that our abortion healing leaders, those that come to this meeting, would benefit tremendously from having this for themselves, but also for the clients they serve. So I'm going to take you through it kind of from a point of view of you actually doing it for yourself, but then also for you to be able to create this space with the clients and the folks that you serve to do this with them and to give them kind of a space and place to, create more awareness. The more awareness we have, the more awakened we are to accept things that are going on in our lives and make change or take action steps. So I'm going to share my screen. We'll go through the PowerPoint presentation. It's going to be an interactive session today. Ivy is actually going to put a link to a document that we are going to use in the chat. And if you've already printed it out, you're well ahead of the game. It is actually a balance wheel, and it just kind of gives you a starting place to work from. If you didn't print it out, if you don't have access to a printer, I'm going to talk to you about how you can do this really easily. In fact, it's my favorite thing to do on the back of an envelope or in just a note-taking place. So you'll have the ability to do this regardless of whether you have it or not. But if you'd like it, we have access to it in our chat feature. So just to kind of give us a premise for what this thing is, I love that Michelle cultivated this picture of these ladies and gentlemen on these bikes because, we don't ever see people riding bikes with flat tires. And so just how important it is for us to understand that a wheel, in order for it to function smoothly, it really needs to be full of air with no holes and no bends in the framing or anything like that. And so that's kind of the concept that I really want you to hold on to today for you, but again, also for the application for your clients, is that we're really trying to produce this image that, like, how do we function as a wheel running very smoothly, and what takes us off that smooth journey. And so here's a video, kind of just this funny thing to express that. Okay, so you get it, right? I mean, here's just for those visual learners on here, how important it is for our wheel to be full of air, to be fully functioning, because without it, look at what happens. It's hard to move forward, right? I can just imagine the driver of this vehicle pushing the gas pedal, and it just kind of like them having to push it so hard that it flies forward. And in doing so, it breaks off another piece of this wheel, right? So just something really kind of humorous to start us off, but legit, if we can apply this to our life, how serious it is when we're not functioning in a healthy way on all levels. So what is this thing that we're going to talk about today? It's a way for us to assess. It's a way to enlighten us. It's a way to bring into our awareness how our life is balancing out, right? So there's some key things inside of our life that matter to us. All of us have different things. They might feel very similar, but how are they all firing? And it's been my experience personally, having done this for a long time and having walked alongside people, that most of the time there's several areas that are firing really strong. And then there's other areas that are completely opposite. It is really hard to fire on all cylinders in our life. And it's part of our humanity. It's part of life and the trials that we're offered. It's part of the resources we have, the ability we have, the community that's around us, the community we allow to be inside of us. So we're going to look at this thing from different places, not just one. Like, family's firing, great, but how's work going? How's your spiritual life going? How's your health and fitness going? And so we're going to kind of look at this thing as it's not just one area that blows up the tire. There's multiple areas, and this is a tool to help assess how those things are how they're functioning. And so right now, if you would, I kind of gave you several examples, but as you think about your life, as you think about the lives that you serve, maybe in the chat or maybe just on a piece of paper in front of you, would you highlight just whatever comes to mind when I ask this question? What areas of your life would you say are most important to you? And just take a minute. Don't think too much about it. Just jot them down. And if you feel like adding them in the chat to offer them as kind of a olive branch to your colleagues here, that's great. If they're kind of more meaningful, maybe you're working on your finances this year. Maybe you're working on parenting. Maybe you're in a season of caregiving for a parent or an older sibling or an older family member. Right? Maybe you're moving across country and you're downsizing and you're doing all of that. Whatever it is, what is important to you as you think about this wheel that we're going to be building together? I'm just going to open the chat to self-discovery, friends, family, therapy, relationships, the spiritual aspect, family, faith. Okay, these are all ministry. Yes, all areas. Business, perhaps. Okay, great. So keep those in mind as we keep moving towards what's going on. And so we've already done that. So here are some ideas for those of you that are like, I need some more meat on the bone. Family, friends, maybe it's a significant other, a marriage relationship, a new dating relationship, your work-life balance, finances, perhaps it's your fitness, your exercise. You just got a new diagnosis and you're trying to implement a new healthy tool. Fun and recreation. Sometimes that gets put all the way on the bottom, but we know how important it is to have that ability to separate from the serious parts of our life. How is your sleep? How is your rest? Do you have a day a week to pull away from all of the responsibilities and really just nurture yourself? Do you get in a bathtub? Can you take a hot shower? Do you get to go on walks in nature? Some people really care about their spiritual life, and it might not just be once a week on Sundays. Perhaps it's the Bible study that you're in, or the group of men that you are working with in a self-discovery space. Some of you have hobbies that really fuel you and that mean a lot to you. Volunteering is very important to many people. Health and wellness kind of intersects with fitness, but perhaps this is your healthy eating. And for those of you maybe watching your salt intake or your sugar intake, how are you doing in that area? Because you see that your personality shifts or these things. How's your self-growth? We heard that from somebody earlier in the chat. Discovery, creativity. Maybe some of you are in recovery. How is that going? I want to pause here in this, and I just want you to maybe offer yourself an extension into your client's life. When is the last time somebody actually ask your client or the people that we serve, how's everything going? Not just this one area, not just this big area that's calling so much attention to it, but how are the other things in our life going? I always say this, how we do one thing, we often do all things. And so if how we do the one thing that's presenting itself as the most significant, there's likely going to be things in these other areas that similar patterns have developed. So it's a perfect way to invite this like holistic, inclusive approach to our clients, because even if they get this one thing firing, if we don't really look at the whole thing, they're going to fall flat in another area. And so this is just such a great tool to do with anyone, yourself, your children, people in your life, the clients we serve. And this list is just helpful to kind of negotiate that it's a lot of different things that make up what's going on in our world. Okay, so let's pull the printout out. Like I said, Ivy put it inside of the chat. I also, like I said, I'm going to help show you how to do this on your own paper, because I want you to know that this isn't something that needs to be workbook type, right? If you're sitting in the car, I do a lot of things when I'm waiting for my kids to finish sports, or in the morning, you're sitting on the back patio with your coffee. I just want you to be able to pull out a sticky note and draw a circle and be able to think about all the areas that matter to you and be able to really assess where you are in all of those categories. And so if you have this beautiful printout that Michelle made for us, use it. But if not, I want you to know that you don't have to have this in order to do this activity on a regular basis. So pull this out, make sure you have a pen or pencil. If you don't, remember, I want you to just pull a piece of paper out and try to articulate this picture to the best of your ability. What we're really trying to cultivate is a pie chart, so we can really understand what's going on in all of these facets. Okay. So I'll give you a second to kind of get yourself organized. Some of you are probably head start, ready to do this. Others might have already done this in the past. This isn't a new tool. This is a useful tool that's used across a lot of different platforms in the mental health world, in the coaching world, in business. Okay. All right. Okay. So now this is kind of going to be your separate space to start working. You'll hear my voice in the background, but you just get started. So in each of these lines, in each of these categories, I want you to fill in the top 8 things that are important to you in your life. Those things that we talked about a couple slides ago, the things that were written in the chat. And if you don't have 8, that's okay. But I'm sure that if you let yourself get curious, you'll see that there are many important things. You might even have to take some off your list or combine some of them. For those of you who have a lot, you can separate these boxes or these triangles into even smaller triangles and add another area if you feel like you need to put that on your wheel. I'll give you a moment to look that over. For those of you who are finishing a little sooner than the group, just be thinking about how you might be able to add this to one of the lessons that you're teaching, one of the ministries that you lead, how you might work with a client who's experienced abortions and how this might be useful. Perhaps a client comes to mind and think, this might have been a really good tool to explore some of those things that we talked about. So just be maybe allowing those things to come to mind. And the second step is to evaluate yourself. So there's a picture on the screen for you to kind of look at, see how it would look. Each of these lines represents a measure of how you're doing. 0 being, I am not doing so hot in this area. 5 being like, I am firing wonderfully in this area. And I want you to be honest with yourself. Nobody has to see. Maybe, you started off the year strong in those health and fitness goals, and last night, they brought cookies home and they were sitting in the office and you had 4 of them, and darn it, I'm finding it hard to be consistent. Maybe I overspent during the holidays and now we have 2 major credit cards open that we're struggling to, make ends meet this month. Whatever that is, only you and the paper need to know what's going on. But be real with yourself. The worst thing we can do right now is lie to ourselves, not listen to what's really going on. Maybe one of you need to hear that you gave yourself a 4 and you really needed to give yourself a 2. And the opposite's true for some of you. You don't think very highly of yourself. You struggle to see yourself as worth it and having the ability that you really are doing well. And so maybe some of you need to change that 2 to a 4 because you are really making great strides in that area. The only way that we can really get to the root of what's going on is to get real with ourselves. And this is the same thing for our clients. Okay, so after you've rated yourself, now I want you to use whatever space is available. If you're jotting down on the back of a receipt, you might have more limited space. If you're on the worksheet, perhaps you want to be more concise and on the lines. But what are the reasons for the rating that you gave yourself? If you're really doing really well in that education category, you finished out last semester with all A's and you've got your notebook ready and the syllabus printed for this semester. Those are reasons why you're performing really high and feel really good about how you're doing in that category. Maybe in the parenting category, you're struggling, you're overcommitted, and you're already realizing how stressed out you are after school and that you wish you were more available emotionally for the kids. But you see that you're stretched thin, trying to do too much. These are just examples, but just be thinking, what creates that? And think about how much you could learn from a client in this way. Why did you give yourself a 2? What's going on in that area? Or wow, a 5. Tell me what's going on really well. Well, in my recovery, I have a meeting that I go to every week. Maybe I go to them every day. I have a sponsor. I'm getting ready to go on a retreat. I have everything I need to help me stay healthy in this space. Wow. How can you apply that to your finances? I think how we do one thing, we do all things. Oh, maybe you need an advocate in that area or a mentor to help you in that space. Maybe just 30 more seconds, just really being thoughtful. I really appreciate how all of you are really being intentional. That's awesome. Okay, so our third step, maybe it's our fourth step, we're going to connect the dots in the way that you see here on the screen. So if you had 2 in finances and a 5 in health and wellness and a 4 in faith, I want you to just keep tracing that line around the circle. And if you need an example, it's on the screen. Remember, I'm doing 2 things here. I'm drawing this awareness out of you, but drawing the awareness to how you can help others. I'd like you to be present with what happens when you see your line, what it feels like to go down, what it feels like to go up, what happens in your head and your heart and your stomach as you see those dips in your wheel, or maybe as you see the highlights or the strong points in your wheel. And in one word, if you could, for those of you who want to share in the chat, what one word describes what happened as you started connecting the dots? Thanks for sharing. Bumpy, awareness, flat, out of balance, improvement, priorities. Wow. Stress, messy, clarity, confusion, stressed, no focused. Ooh, slanted. There's some awareness around why some anxiety exists. Unbalanced, there's awareness. This is an encouragement. You're doing better than you realized. Places that are maybe were in blind spots that you had maybe perhaps been ignoring. I hear you, Lori. Chest tightness, absolutely. Hopeful and encouraged, messy, awareness, tilted. Great words. Until you see this on paper and do this activity, at times, many of us are robots. We just are going through life, checking off things on the list, doing the things we did yesterday that we need to do today, and we don't stop to think about what is really underneath all of it. And our clients are likely even less aware. And what an opportunity for those of you who were able to express what happened to you as you connected the dots. Beautiful things occurred for you, and not so beautiful things occurred. But what I hope that you're seeing is that you can't move to a new location inside of yourself unless you have understanding of what's going on. You can't appreciate what's going well unless you really have a clear picture of what's going on. Is the balance wheel the only way to do that? Absolutely not. It's just one of the tools we want to offer you for yourself and for those that you're serving. So as we reflect, because this is where all the awareness comes, I would love for you to take yourself off of mute. And I would love to have a discussion with you about what observations you might have. Why is life so smooth or so bumpy? And I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment so we can see your faces and we can connect. But what are some things that are coming to mind? And you can share in the chat, or you can take yourself off of mute and the team will help us kind of navigate any open conversation here.
Lisa, I'm just going to interject while people get warmed up to coming onto camera. If you'd raise your hand, we'll know how to pick each person that comes. But as you think about the person who is presenting in a PRC, who may be in a state of anxiety, may be traumatized after experiencing abortion, how would you guide them to receive the feedback this tool would create in kind of a digestible baby step method?
That's great, Kylie. And I think that is really, it can be an intersection for all of you. You know, some of you are in a space right now where you're like, oh my goodness, I had no idea that this thing was so off balance, or that it was cultivating this crazy anxiety inside of me. And so again, it's normalizing what happened. All of us, right, struggle to fire in all of these places at a high level. And so what are we looking at? We're just kind of looking at life and trying to just better understand why we're here. You know, what else is hurting if we're talking about abortion? What other areas of your life might you need some support in? But also looking at a strengths-based approach, look at the positive things that's going on. You have a community around you, like your home life is balanced, or whatever those things are. We can find the strengths in that too. But really what I want you to hear is it's a very like introduction to a conversation and a beginning kind of to say, what do you want to do from here? What did you learn about this? How might this help us get curious about what our next steps might be? And it just opens up that conversation that so many of our clients struggle to start. I don't want to talk about it. Okay. Well, I have this activity and I'm just curious if you'd join me in doing this. And maybe we'll talk about it afterwards.
Lisa, I was really encouraged by Marianne Fernandez, who commented that one of the ways she's using this tool is to reflect or mirror back progress to her clients. And so when she begins with the wheel, then checks in later using the same tool, she's able to reflect that progress and create a point of encouragement that might have otherwise been missed. Can you speak to that? Is that something that you've seen used elsewhere?
Absolutely. What a great opportunity, right? For us to be able to compare where we were and where we are now. My journey has kind of echoed something really interesting is once I've noticed the deficit, I start working on it, but then I land somewhere lower in another area. And so it's been this kind of like push-pull for me to learn what I do in order to get my fitness goals met. I often abandon something else. That's not everybody's story, but that's been mine. And so how do we get to a place where we feel good about a lot of the areas in our life and we're not sacrificing one for the other? But what a great opportunity to reflect back to our clients like, hey, there's some growth here. Did you even realize this? And it's not often that people are reflecting that back. So Marianne, thank you for sharing that. I think it's fabulous that you're doing it in that way.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Marianne. It really was exciting to see such a hopeful comment, and also to see all the people who have gone through this wheel and felt encouraged. And that doesn't mean that your wheel is perfect, right? It just means that your wheel is perhaps not flat right now. So how can we help our clients to kind of align their life balance goals with where they want to see themselves in a few months?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, we first need to start with the conversation. And that's kind of what we're doing right here, right? There's going to be a time for us to have Q&A here in a little bit, but we need to start the discussion. Like, we need to start somewhere. So many of us want to start in the deep end of the pond, and we don't even realize that we're starting in the deep end of the pond. I see that a lot in our industry, is that like, okay, tell me about everything. But maybe our clients aren't ready to tell us about everything related to their abortions. Maybe they want to start with their relationships, or perhaps the one thing that's really highlighted is their finances, or whatever it is. But giving them a place to really articulate that there's a holistic perspective about everything that's going on. It gives us a place to start the conversation, much like we're doing right here. So, I'd love to turn it back to the group as we're kind of just really reflecting, so that we can have some internal understanding of this. But like, what is going on for you, for those of you who are doing this for the first time, or maybe doing this again after several months or years, or maybe do this often? What's occurring for you and what's happening inside of you, so that we can just have a more like a personal connection to the journey you're on?
Great. Marlene, would you like to come on camera and speak, please?
Yeah, hi ladies. So one of the things as I was really starting to reflect on my chart is it seems that some of the areas where I'm like scoring myself really high, I can actually use some of those areas to help me be more successful in the things that I'm not doing great on. Because one of the things that I scored really high on was friendships, which a few months ago was really low, but in the past few months I've like developed really close, intimate friendships. But one of my really low areas is health. And I know at least my best friend, she's really into fitness and really into like eating well and stuff like that. So using my friendship with her as a motivator to get me more healthy. So just things that I'm looking at on my chart, I'm like, man, how can I use the things that I'm doing well to help me out and the things that I'm doing not so well? Instead of like trying to get rid of things or feeling stressed out, like, oh my gosh, why am I failing in so many areas of my life, to use the things that I'm strong at to help me in the things I'm weaker at.
That's so cool. And maybe if you'll stay with me for a moment, did that occur to you before you saw it on paper?
No, not at all. I was
Yeah.
just looking at it and I'm like, that's my strongest area is friendships right now. And even like in one of my ministries that I run, like she helps out as a volunteer. So maybe getting her even more involved, or like just different things are occurring to me. So yeah, that was good. And I love the idea of using this with clients, not just my abortion recovery clients, but just clients that come in on a regular basis to the pregnancy center, because sometimes it's hard to get them to talk about things. This is a fun activity. You know, people like
Yeah.
activities. So like putting it out on papers, it's awesome.
Right. And
Yeah.
just think about what you'll learn about them as they pick their 8
Right.
areas. You'll learn a whole lot about what matters to
Absolutely.
them.
Yeah. I learned some stuff about myself. So
I
good.
love that. Thanks for sharing your humanity in
Yes.
that, because that's something I've seen before too. It's like, I never realized till I put it on paper that this
Right.
thing was this thing, and look at everything. Thank you for that. That's awesome. All right, who's next? Who would like to share?
Blessing, would you come on camera? Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Would you like to
Hello.
share a question?
Yes.
Go
Can you
ahead.
hear
We can
me?
hear you. Yes.
Yeah. Looking at my wheel balancing, I had 8 items here, and I discovered that they are related. It's like a chain.
Mm.
It's like a chain, like experience. The area of spiritual life, when I'm more happy, connected with myself, with God, and other things, I see that it flows to other aspects of my life. I take my work seriously. I'm ready to volunteer. As a writer, I have the passion to read and to write. But I discovered that when I'm stressed, my spiritual life is low. It also affects the 8 aspects of my life. The family is affected. My work begins to go down. I don't have the zeal to volunteer and all that. In relation to the work I do as a counselor to those who are seeking healing from abortion, I discovered that sometimes the process in which I use help them to open up, to be ready for healing. So I'm seeing this tool as a very good tool to create self-awareness, to also help them to reflect deeply so that it comes from them. What is bothering them comes from them so that I can process and journey with them. So thank you.
Yes. And thank you for highlighting that it does seem that certain areas of our life have more impacts on others. And so thank you for identifying that, because if a lot of your wheel is off, perhaps there's something underneath all of that, like we just learned, that has to do with everything. Mhm. Thank you, Blessings. Is there anybody
Absolutely.
else?
Simone, I noticed that you came off mute. I'm curious if perhaps you would like to share something.
No, I actually really don't have anything to share at the moment. I'm here to learn and to just get ideas from everyone, because I run a pregnancy help organization, but mostly, although we call it a pregnancy center, I don't have premises at the moment. So I'm working from home, and I'm also work with a lot of Zulu ladies. So it's a very different scenario. So I'm always looking for new ideas and ways in which to approach things. So this is very helpful for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone. That's wonderful feedback. Lisa, I have a question. We have a provider who indicates that a lot of the clients that they are serving have relationship issues and codependency that's prevalent among the people that they care for. How can they use this wheel to help their clients to improve their relationships, or even perhaps set some better healthy boundaries?
Yeah, it's been my experience that most of those clients don't even understand what's going on in those areas. They just know it's dysfunctional, and somehow they feel tethered to that dysfunction. And so, as it's been stated already, this is an awareness tool that opens them up to perhaps a different way in, or a different perspective, to just offering a conversation. You know, so many of our clients in the space of codependency and relationship issues learned very early on that in order to feel loved, they had to attach to these very dysfunctional people to feel value, identity, purpose. And so these conversations can sometimes be more difficult, because for them, it's their drug of choice, if you will. It's their security blanket. And so a tool like this kind of objectifies a little, or gives more objectivity to a conversation that might be full of emotion. It's not going to be the answer to them, you know, separating from that toxicity or whatever else, but it's going to be the beginning of a conversation to begin maybe finding a safe place to negotiate. Why do you think your relationships are a 2 right now? What's going on in that area? Well, it just seems like everybody in my life is always taking from me or stealing from me. What do you think that does for you? And it gives a space to start that conversation. And you might even say something like, what do you want to do about this? How might you move from a 2 to a 5, as a way of just cultivating new territory for them?
Great. When I first met you, Lisa, I had the privilege of learning about how much you enjoy getting into the icky sticky with people. And it's a word I had never heard before I met you. So I always think of the icky sticky with you, and how we really can't get through the icky sticky until we start shedding light, and that's what this tool can be for you. But if you happen to do this tool, you know, so today you're sitting here, you finish this tool, you identify some areas that you'd like to create some new balance in, what would you say to the person who returns to reassess and realizes that the things they focused on to enhance made everything else become flat?
And that's been my journey, Kylie, as I've been on this development of becoming my better self and really be purpose-filled, that I often only knew how to do one thing well at a time, that one area of my life required great focus. And so I had to find my way through, you know, what that looked like. And I think that that's part of the shift, is that maybe perhaps we only have bandwidth to do one thing well, or maybe we feel like we have to do one thing to perfection. And so everything else melts away. Allow that to be an awareness building opportunity for you to understand that sometimes we have to reprioritize, and we don't have to be at a number 5 for everything, but we can settle to be at a number 4. And that's okay too. But I think that is part, Kylie, of the journey, is learning how to find that, and also to appreciate that, listen, there's seasons of life that just are heavy, and that some areas we have to reconsider, that maybe those top 8 things aren't always going to be the top 8 things. And so being gracious with ourselves as well is a big part of this.
Yeah, I love that. It was new for me to hear you provide some flexibility, that it doesn't exactly have to be 8, and it doesn't exactly have to be all 5s. You know, it gives a little bit of permission for that grace you mentioned, and especially when life becomes our Lent, you know? And so
Mhm.
very good. We did have a question from Yolanda. She said, is there any meaning that you're attributing to a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Or is
Oh,
it just a self-definition?
yeah, what I think is most important here is that this is your own personal tool. It's your client's own tool. And so whatever they deem as a 1 and whatever they deem as a 5, that's what we love about Likert scales, is that people then get to discern for themselves. But then where you might come along is, why is it a 1? What makes this a 1? How can you move to a 4? What would life look like at a 4? And you can start building in all the meaning around that. But the numbers are only there as a structure for us to kind of begin to build our own awareness around it.
I love that. So for the perfectionist that you're caring for, perhaps you can draw out some grace within themselves to say, you know, not everything is as flat as you might think it is. So,
Correct. Yes.
Lee McCandless, I see you came off mute. Just curious if you'd like to share any sort of observation.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to just type it. Can you hear me?
Yes, and see you.
I was just thinking about how you can use this wheel at the micro level. And when you were talking about codependency and poor relationships, you could take it and maybe have the wheel reflect 8 relationships that you have.
Mhm.
And maybe you've got really good relationships with 3 people in your life, but a really poor relationship with someone. And, going off what was previously said, maybe look at some of those reasons why it's working well in one relationship, and maybe use some of those tools to help you with the other. It also may help you think about, maybe you need to eliminate a relationship if it's a detrimental relationship.
And Lee, thank you. And this is why we do this. I am stealing it, Lee. And I hope all of you just stole what she just said, because what a gift. What another beautiful opportunity to use a tool to work towards our clients' advantage and for us. Thank you, Lee. That's a beautiful gift to all of us. I appreciate that.
Adriana, would you like to speak? Come on camera. And Mary,
Yes.
I'm going to get you on camera, Mary, at some point here.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can.
Yes, and see you.
Yes. So I don't really have anything, I don't have any great thing to say. I just really want to thank Lisa. Lisa and I spoke couple of years ago. I am just like her fan. I'm just completely her fan. She's so wise, and I'm emotional right now. But I just want to thank you all for doing this, because all of the trainings, but today specifically, I'm a very horrible perfectionist. And I'm working on that. I'm working on being aware and on not being that for everyone. Like I don't have to be everything for everyone. Like I have tried for 56 years, but I am so grateful, because this wheel thing, I mean, it's just kind of giving me permission to be okay. Like you guys are, speaking this, I'm like at 3s and 4s, and at first I was a little bit disappointed. I have 1, 5. And so I'm at 3s and 4s, and I'm thinking, but as I hear you guys, as I hear the chat, I'm thinking it's okay to be at 3s and 4s. And I'm always trying to improve, but I think right now I'm trying to, I don't know if this is a word, unimprove. I'm trying to just not be so stressed about being the best at everything. And so the thing that God has been dealing with me a lot in so many times this has come up in scripture, people talking about it, is rest. God really wants me to rest. And I'm thinking, on what? Like, how do I rest? Like, I just don't do anything. Like, what do I do? And God is just saying, just rest from the things that just burden you and just trust me, in all the things that you're doing, just trust me, And so I just really, this wheel thing is just really giving me permission to not be a perfectionist. And as long as I'm working on that, and 3s and 4s are okay, they're balanced. You know what I mean? And I think the biggest takeaway, I wrote this, it's like how we do one thing, we do all things. And I feel like that's me, I'm balanced. And so I don't have to be at 5s. I just feel I feel like peace with this. I feel okay with that. Thank you.
Congratulations. And something you said just kind of brought some mindfulness to me, that we want to have space in our life. Rest creates space. And so rest looks different for everyone. But I would imagine that for the 125 people on this call today, many of you struggle to be doers and not beers. And God calls us to be beers. And when I say beers, we're human beings. We struggle to be with ourselves, which creates space to be with God, with struggles to be with our faith, to struggles to be with our family. A lot of you struggle with always doing. And I just feel like that's an important place to say, what does rest mean? It means expansion for women. It means expansion for men. It means that we're creating space inside of our hearts, inside of our minds, inside of our bodies for whatever else is out there. Right? But if we don't have space for those things, if we don't have rest in our bodies and in our minds and in our hearts, we can't create space for new things. We can't be open to new things. We can't be intentional. We can't be curious about things. And so that's the rest piece. If it's not on your wheel, perhaps looking at it differently this time and saying, oh, that's what that is. Do I have places where I pause and reflect and do a balance wheel, and then meditate on that balance wheel and reflect on ways in which I can continue to grow and who can support me in that? Many of you don't. Your feet hit the ground in the morning, and then it's not until you wake up the next day that you really go, oh, I forgot I did that thing that I was supposed to do, right? Many of you lack that, and our clients certainly lack it. So Adriana, thank you for bringing that up. Okay. Moving on, if you were able to do that, I appreciate it. Keep finishing if you're working on it. I wanted to spotlight several of the opportunities that are coming your way, just in case you're not aware of them. We have several meetings, healing meetings and leadership meetings coming up. And Greg, if you'll hop on, I know you are on our call today, but if you'll come off mute and help me discuss a little bit about the Men's Healing Matters webinars. But we have our quarter facilitator meetings the 4th Wednesday at 12 p.m. starting January 24th. Remember, that is the next phase up from this meeting that we have every month. So it's really intentionally helping people. It's getting everybody kind of equipped to lead groups and coach you through that process. We have 2 healing groups coming up through we have the Unraveled Roots co-ed for leaders group, so that maybe this will help you get ready to start leading your own Unraveled Roots group. And then Sue Ketchum through Hearts Restored is getting ready to lead our codependency groups. And so grateful for that opportunity. So Greg, would you kind of tell us a little bit about the Men's Healing Matters webinars that are starting?
Yeah, so I'm incredibly excited about this. Men's Healing Matters. It's going to be a monthly webinar series, 2nd Wednesday of the month at noon. And the idea, it's not just for men, okay? So if you're a man or a woman, you can attend. It's for people who are serving men or want to serve men. The webinar will be structured much like this one, but it's going to focus on reaching men, how men heal, how men receive information, that kind of thing. some of the topics, Lisa, we're going to talk about: engaging men, changing the way we talk about abortion with men, the male volunteer, fatherlessness. It's just a really, really intentional and deliberate opportunity to find out how to better serve in your facilities men. And part of the, if I can just say this, part of the catalyst for this, if you will, has been a couple of years now of speaking out around the country and having people say, what do I say to a guy when they come into my center, right? So this is what we're going to focus on. I'm excited to roll it out. The first session will be February 14th. And yeah, I think it's going to be a great series for us this year.
Awesome, Greg. Thank you so much for being intentional. And then we're here. We're ready to talk about February 21st, our next webinar. And Greg, I guess you're going to be leading this webinar, perhaps.
I've heard rumors. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what we can expect.
Well, I don't want to give too much away. I'll tell you the topic is going to be top 10 resolutions for abortion healing providers. So if that doesn't pique your interest and make you want to come back, I don't know what will. We all talk about resolutions this time of the year, right? We all have goals and things we want to do. So to me, why don't we start off, well, not start off the year, Lisa, you've already done that very well with this session, but why don't we dig in next month and talk about the top 10 resolutions healing providers have?
Awesome. And yours truly will get to be the presenter. Greg is always, it's always great to have a different perspective, a male perspective. And we're just so grateful you're on the team, Greg. Thanks for offering that insight. And that's it. That's all we got for today. And so I am super thrilled that you chose to join us today. If you want to share this journey, this webinar with anyone, of course, you'll have the recording in an email later on today. And I hope that you found it useful and that you can apply this. Please don't leave this session and put this paperwork underneath your computer and never look back. It was intentional that you were here today. Take one step that towards whatever it was that you gleaned from today and put it into practice so that it doesn't go to waste. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you at one of the many opportunities we have to connect. Take care.